so it's finally raining. Look at this rain. It's raining again. I imagine what it must be like to drive. Look at this. Maybe like the rain because we don't have people the whole Alright, can you see? Can you see the rain? It's really raining. I wanted to talk to you about a beautiful story I just read. I was really touched from a collection by Gideon Telpaz. It's called My Shadow Rests on Another Wall. It's not recently published. Like 20 years old, 21 years old. Maybe older. And this is about, they get me again. This is about a story called Rosewater from Port Saiid. So I'm going to read a translation of the beginning and then discuss the story. Telpaz. I don't know if it's been translated to English, I imagine. It's also been made into a film, but I don't remember seeing it. So it's an amazing story because it sums up so many ideas. What I love about short stories is how they can create so much within just a few pages. Like this is like a really short story, a few pages. That's it, and you've got a whole history here. So it's called Rosewater from Port Saiid. Sailing from Melbourne to Port Saiid, Mother cried one time when she lost her teeth in the sink. The bell rang for dinner and Mother was bent over the sink in her beautiful dress and her jewelry. She couldn't go to the dining room without her teeth. Mother panicked and Ruchama got out of the cell to they're in a ship. So she got out of the, whatever you call the room, to the corridor to ask for the help. He took apart the pipe and found Mother's teeth stuck in them. Mother's thanks the help didn't hear because he couldn't stop looking at Ruchama, and Ruchama winked at me and stuck out of its tongue. This was a month long. This voyage took a month long, and Mother was sure that we will go down into the ocean before it will end. The first week was desperate. The boat is called Mongolia. It was sailing across a coast, stormy coast, and next to Permintal, we almost turned over. The skies turned dark. The ship rode on emotional, sort of like the part of the rooster, this part of the head of the rooster of gigantic waves. And then the ocean was calm, and most of the day I was watching Ruchama in the long corridors in the bar and on the ship deck, counting the men that looked at her. Mother did not wear black anymore. And in the nights, when she walked with Ruchama to a cocktail party of the captain, I was alone in the cell listening to the ocean. The ship Mongolia stopped at India and Ceylon and then in Port Saiid. And when we passed the night in the Suez Canal, the orchestra played music about love in Capri, and in the masquerade my costume got first prize. Ruchama was beautiful. The officers were waiting, praying on her, waiting who's going to dance with her. All night I didn't shut an eye, and I looked into the lights of the tunnel. And in the morning we got close to Port Saiid. I stood between Mother and Ruchama among hundreds of passengers waiting to look at the looking over at the shore. And then Mother received telegraph. She opened the envelope and looked, and she said, "Ribono shel olam, God of the universe." "Who is it from?" asked Ruchama. "It's from Mr. Antebi. He will wait for us at the deck." Grandfather wrote him. "He's probably there," Ruchama called. The ship Mongolia was making sounds and then she looked at the houses are getting closer, surrounded by palm trees. The houses of Port Saiid that became white. So white that they were blindly white in the blue of the morning sky. So the story was that grandfather, it says, loved to say that Mr. Antebi will accumulate millions before he will retire. And now I can finally see what a millionaire looks like, said Ruchama, and her eyes were watching. "Who is Mr. Antebi?" I looked at her. "Who is it?" He was grandfather's helper in Tzfat, that's in land of Israel, in the factory. And one day, 20 years ago, he went to Egypt. Why? Why did he leave Tzfat, I asked. His reasons, Ruchama said. So there were silent, dark men wearing white, colonial officers and large cork hats. And then we all walked around, and in between the wagons, the automobiles, the tax officer, policemen were coming. Somebody called our name on the loudspeaker, and we were going to the bar of the ship, and the captain and the silver-haired man with round eyes came towards us and greeted us. The strange man was wearing cotton, a suit made out of fabric, white fabric, and had a black bow tie, and a red carnation was and one hand he held a straw hat, on one hand he held a stick. And "Mr. Antebi," Mother mumbled, "called me Aviyazar," said Mr. Antebi, bending down and kissing her hands. "Good to see you again, Rachel. How was the voyage?" Mother's face burned. "Thank you, thank God." The captain smiled. "Ladies, I am trusting you in faithful hands." Curtsied to Mother and Ruchama, pinched my cheek, and went away. "I'm so glad you could come and meet us," said Mother. I was probably going to go get lost with my orphans." "Nothing to think about," said Mr. Antebi, and his round eyes were looking aside. "I'm glad your father asked me to look over you." I was sorry to hear about your husband's death, he said. It's been more than a year that father is gone, Ruchama intervened. Mr. Entebbe shook his hand. Ruchama, beautiful girl, if I may say so. Thank you, said Ruchama. And this is Tziona, my young sister, like Zion. She is Australian, product of Australia. Maybe you know, we were there 14 years. I know it, said Entebbe.
There's things going on.
Father said it's always important to come back to Zion. That's why we're fulfilling his legacy, his will. Mr. Entebbe looked at the ocean. Zion, Zion, he said. We all dream of Zion. I'm afraid that after Melbourne, the city of gardens and flowers, Zion will look to you like a desert. We're prepared for everything, said Ruchama, even though Mother didn't turn to her. So they're talking about, so I'm intervening this part I read, I will read more parts maybe. So they're planning to build a pension, or not a pension, it's called a pension in Ivrit, but it's a boarding house in Jerusalem. And beautiful descriptions of, and then the sisters talk, and apparently this man wanted to marry their mother, but she married instead their father for some reason, and he was always waiting for her, and he's helping them. So they're going to Jerusalem, and one day, this is a very interesting story, they get off the boats and they come to it says here, she remembered father saying, don't say Palestine, he says, say land of Israel, because that's your name. But my name is Tziona, I said. Father shook his head sadly. Say land of Israel, and the words were melodious on his tongue in a sacred melody. I woke up and I had pain in my chest. The hour was early and Ruchama was snoring. I went and I saw how the first lights. I'm still in the boat, I thought, looking towards a foreign country. So she opened a boarding house in a good neighborhood in Jerusalem called Rechavia, and she cooks well. And then 2 months afterwards, on Mother's birthday, we're waiting for a present, and it's the afternoon on a summer day, and there's a bell ringing, and the little girl goes to open the door, and there's a very tall African dog man, wearing white, a long white shirt, the color of ivory on his black skin, and on his waist he's wearing a wide red belt, and on his head he has a tall bush, that's a Turkish hat, so a square hat. And he looks at her quietly, and he has a basket, a straw basket. Mother, I scream, come quick. Mother comes from the kitchen. I am Ahmad, says the African man, taking from his straw basket a letter from Mr. Entebbe. And then I noticed that his face is not like that of a man from Africa. His lips are not as large, and he had a scar, like a half moon. And Mother read the letter, she's waiting, and he said, God of heaven, Mr. Entebbe exaggerated this time. He sent me a slave from Sudan, a present for my birthday. Ruchama stops and he looks, what am I going to do with a Sudanese or a slave from Sudan, asked Mother. Let him in, Ruchama says. At least it's a useful gift. So Mother comes from the entrance, Ahmad comes inside. He's so tall that she has to stretch out her neck. She's stretching out her neck to look at him. And he finds the way to the kitchen, puts down the straw baskets, takes out a clean apron, wears it, goes to the cook, and takes out the garbage to empty it. To send a man A human being is a present? Mother is shaking her astonishment. Mr. Entebbe must be kidding. I will return him on the first train back to Egypt. Oh, Mother, called Ruchama. A slave from Sudan, Mother said, looking at Ruchama. A man from Sudan will walk around my house? Do you want to hurt Mr. Entebbe? Ruchama says, don't you see that he remembered how much we like them? Jerusalem is not Port Saiid, said Mother. Leave him, I beg. Leave him, Mother. How could you receive a slave as a How can I receive a slave as a present, says Mother. Leave him. The small one is right, Ruchama says. Mr. Entebbe understood exactly what you're missing, a man in this boarding house. Look, you didn't even tell him what to do and he's already done it. I couldn't believe my eyes. Ahmed went to the kitchen, he washed his hands, and he put a white towel over his hands and a tray. It was tea time. He put the glasses and he went to the dining room. Keep an eye, Ruchama says. You have a fortune. He probably belongs to the employee of Mr. Entebbe. But who receives a human being as a gift? Mother was upset. Even before we talked, we were sitting with the diners, and the first time they felt like they were guests. And Ahmad has a frozen expression, and he gives everything exact, the portions exact, as somebody who was serving him for years. Suddenly we have a slave, Mother mumbles. A strange sense of humor Mr. Entebbe has. Strange, says Muhammad. He's so clean, I say. Mother is watching. 2 days on the way from Port Saiid and not one speck of dust. We'll have to find him a place to sleep, Muhammad says. All the rooms are occupied. He will sleep in the kitchen and tomorrow we'll see. The next morning, the little girl who narrates the story wakes up to the screaming. She jumps out of her bed, saws Mother with her hair all messy and a nightgown, looking at the entrance to Ruchama's room. Only this I have. She wakes up and finds him lying on the carpet next to the bedroom. Only this. The people will look and start talking about me. So he was sleeping on the carpet next to her room. Ruchama was going to work, and she put lipstick. I can see you never had a slave, she laughed, and you're still confused, but she will get along. No, said Mother, I'm sending him right back to Egypt. Ruchama put down the mirror and looked at the corridor. Look. He's giving the boarding house a continental taste, and you are complaining. In the corridor by the doors were standing lines and lines of shiny shoes. He was shining all the shoes of the guests, and Mother opened her eyes, and for a moment she forgot how to close them. If Mother didn't send Ahmed back to Egypt, it was only thanks to Ruchama, my beautiful sister, who did everything she wanted since we came to Jerusalem. There was no evening that she didn't go out laughing and going out and exchanging men like socks and not thinking twice. One night, a week after Ahmed came, and after Mother was supervising the cleaning and writing down the menu, she went to her room and I saw Ahmed going after her, taking a towel and water with salt. And I saw Mother tied on her bed. She took off her shoes and Ahmed put the bowl underneath. She put her foot and he says to her, "It hurts, ma'am?" "Oi," says Mother. Soon, ma'am," says Ahmed. "Oi va'avoy." "Oh no," says Mother. So afterwards, she takes her foot out and puts it in the salty water, and he puts the towel gently on her wet foot. She closes her eyes, and 2 minutes later, she puts the other foot and lets Ahmed massage her foot. And then he stops, and Ahmed goes. This time mother let it go. She wasn't watching out the window as she did every night, looking out for Ruchama. This time she could relax, and from her window the girl saw Ahmad is sitting in the balcony, very strict, and he's looking, and he's just watching, just sitting there watching silently. Mother had very good guests because of her cooking, very prominent people in Jerusalem. This is the time of the British mandate, and Ruchama is working in the underground. One day she comes back and she meets a man. His name is Philip. She's in love. He looks like Douglas Fairbank, and he's a Jew. He's a millionaire, but there's a problem. He's a Sephardic Jew, it turns out. So the grandfather makes her break up with him. One day the girl goes to the market and she tries to help an old lady, and the old lady thinks she's trying to steal her things. She just wanted to help, and then she gets like screamed at. She says here, I closed my eyes. She's thinking about Melbourne and the sun and the flowers and how father took her there, and just remembering. And all of a sudden, she's trying to forget. Imagine she's Australia. She's being attacked. They're ripping her clothes apart. It looks like they're devouring her. And she's being attacked by the mobs in the market, by the Arabs. And all of a sudden, she feels like a strong arms take her, and it's Ahmed. She sees the half-moon scar. Ahmed lifts her. Take me home, Ahmed. She says, yes, miss. I'm not feeling good, Ahmed. Never leave me. No, miss. A few days later, after nursing her mother nurses her. They have an incident with an officer from the British Army. And Ahmed saves the day. He gets him drunk so he doesn't look, because the Jewish underground are hiding a weapon in the cellar, the wine cellar. And so he saves the day. Then one day there's a rumor that Ahmed is selling pistachios in the market after work. And then several sources tell her that it's a small town, Jerusalem, and everybody tells her that he's working in the market. And the mother is very upset. How could he go from my dining room to selling pistachios in the street? People are laughing at me, laughing stock of Jerusalem. Do you want me to ask him what Ruchama offers? No, she says. And then she makes a decision. I thought I have a lion, not a street cat. So Ahmed is sent back. Tomorrow morning, mother writes a long letter to Mr. and Tabby and gives 2 lirot, 2 coins, and sends gives the letter to Ahmed and sends him back to Egypt. It's a beautiful story. That's how it ends. Peace, light, and love.